So my name is Jennifer Quintas. I am a level 1 graduate student in the Master of Athletic Training program here at North Central. And the reason behind my podcast of cultural competency, multilingual medical terminology, and patient care, I decided to focus on that because of my personal experiences growing up as an athlete, being Mexican American, having parents from a different country, seeing how relating to their cultural background and knowing a few of the medical terms can change a whole new perspective for them. And it goes as well for the college athletes as well, just relating to them in a whole new level. Since they are becoming adults, they have to be more aware of taking care of themselves. And sometimes they struggle with this. So by communicating with them and being able to speak with them, making them feel comfortable will draw them in even more and help them understand why they should be taking care of their bodies for their overall performance. Mm-hmm. And then could you go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, my name is Elena Garcia-Martin. Thank you for having me, Jennifer. And I am associate professor in the modern and classical languages at NCC. And I'm particularly in charge of coordinating the professional Spanish minor, which I guess is the reason I'm here to begin with.
Yeah. Okay, and then what made you interested in pursuing your career and then specifically, developing the Spanish minor?
Well, let's go in two parts because I'm not fully responsible for developing this minor. This was actually a departmental-wide initiative, and my colleagues in the Spanish section really did the big bulk even before I arrived of putting it together. So about why I'm in this field, I guess we can begin really early by saying, how I discovered languages. I mean, I always loved literature, and as a way of self-discovery, it was a total haven for me, a safe space. And then getting into languages at a fairly early age, I discovered you had so many more worlds open to you. So little by little, you discovered who you're becoming, in terms of other psyches, literary psyches, even if fictional. So I think it was huge. It left a huge imprint in my identity, just developing as a young adult, right? But languages, I mean, soon enough, I discovered that it wasn't just a fun thing. I actually began as a chemistry major and decided at some point, I don't want really to spend my life in a lab. I want to talk to people. I want to know people. I want to communicate. And I was fascinated by communication and how unique it is to each individual and how you can use language to become other people. So that's how I got into theater. Theater is my other love, right? Okay. How you can use language to project yourself, and it really shapes the way others perceive you. So if you can master language, you can totally kind of control your identity, your public identity in private and in public. And it really becomes a very important tool for professional development if you're able to project yourself and articulate your needs, your projects, your curiosities, your conclusions in a professional manner. So obviously doing that in more than one language, again, I think extended those possibilities incredibly. So in other words, it felt how much language can be a tool of empowerment, and knowing more than one language can really position you really to succeed, not just in college, because I mean there's millions of research and writing about how learning a second language really helps you develop cognitive skills, where your memory, your attention span, your mental flexibility, all of the skills kind of developed beyond any monolingual speakers, and clearly that becomes an important part of also of being successful at work. I mean, I have been as part of obviously putting together this minor. You start looking at the demand for bilingual professionals, and this demand is so high right now. It's clearly that because of the demographic changes in the U.S. And the number of Spanish speakers, right now the demand for Spanish speaking for bilingual professionals has increased like 150% in the 5 years.
Wow.
I mean, it's incredible how much employers actually repeat that there's not enough bilingual professionals in most places. And actually the health sciences, I mean, just in nursing, apparently, lately, in the last 5 years, 40% of the companies listings for registered nurses actually listed that they wanted them to with language skills in Spanish and other languages. So I think everybody at all levels, colleges, administration, industry, everybody's realizing that it's in everybody's benefit to have people in the workplace that are able to handle not only other languages, but other cultures. I think clearly the health sciences is a huge field for this, and employability. I mean, more than 85% of employers actually list second languages as a must requirement. And luckily it's not something that gets enough, I think, attention in most curriculums. So that's, we have better health brain, better jobs, higher earnings. I mean, clearly there's nothing but advantages, I think, to this.
I agree.
So to your second part of your question, what went into getting this minor together? Well, there was definitely putting together the market need, employers asking for it, and having little market of students with these skills, and then trying to fit that with the student profile. We have almost, in Spanish, over 20% of our students are heritage speakers. So if you actually put this together with the professional fields that they're developing, not developing their linguistic skills accordingly is really wasting an immense potential, right? I mean, this is something that if they're able to develop professional Spanish skills parallelly to their fields, it really positions them fantastically in the in terms of employability, and it really I think gives them a confidence not only that they can apply for jobs abroad, but that they can actually serve a huge domestic need for bilingual speakers. And I think this is something that needs to be said more and more, because I think it should be basically a matter of pride that they can, that students can be bilingual. And a huge advantage, I believe.
Yes, I agree. I agree with everything you said. And the statistics that you brought up as well, I knew that there was a need for more bilingual, not specifically Spanish speakers, because the U.S. is a melting pot of a lot of cultures. But the fact that now, like, businesses and employers are becoming aware of how vital this part is it's just insane. It makes me happy, because it's like, like now everything's being brought into light, and a lot of different cultures are being represented, and people are getting that connection with whoever they're speaking with, not just in healthcare, but business or even in small stores as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And then for my next question, what goes into the development of a professional Spanish minor in college? So like just overall, like a general, like, what do you have to do? Who has to be involved? I know you said like you guys look at the market as well and see if there's a need.
So we're talking about the curricular requirements. What does the student go through, right?
Yes.
in order to get this degree. Well, the good thing about this minor is that it's really flexible and fairly. I mean, it's only 20 credits, so that I think really helps. I mean, we realize that the level of intensity in most health-related programs leaves very little room for expansion. So we've tried to make a minor that where you can fit, little bits and pieces, and somehow still come up with a fairly solid program. So we have 20 credits, basically five classes. You should be able to already function at second year level when you enter the program. So that means you're going to enter already knowing enough Spanish to enter into a composition class where you can, review all the grammar, but mostly start working on your written Spanish. That is the first composition class. But other than the composition class, you have basically the things that mark this minor, I think, as very practical and different from the regular minor, is that it contains Spanish for the Professions, which is a class that really concentrates on cultural competence and Spanish that you would use, the register that you would use in the workplace. So you would read research in Spanish to help you acquire the vocabulary in your field that you'll be using. You would do presentations, you try to do, basically produce and generate all the artifacts you need to actually be able to apply for a job that would be bilingual. So you would be working in interview skills, you would be working in your CV, in writing samples in Spanish so that you can present yourself as a bilingual professional. And you can also begin to function in a research context. So your Spanish goes beyond simply being able to communicate or in an articulate manner to actually do it in the context of the workplace or the research place. And then the other component that's really important is that you do an internship where you practice skills that you'll need in your field, but there will be at least, first, let's say 40% of your functions will be in Spanish.
Oh, wow.
So either you would be generating products for general information in Spanish, or you would, some of my students, I can tell you some of their projects have been maybe translating a textbook in their field to be able to use in bilingual schools, like a teaching volume. Some have made a blog so that the companies that we're working in were able to reach out to a bilingual audience and essentially share with them community projects and community-based work. There's obviously a lot of projects in the health sciences that can take place, clearly because of the patient and caregiver relation that would actually include this kind of thing. So there's the internship, there's the Spanish for the Professions bit, there's the written composition part, and then 2 electives. One would be in Spanish, and the other one is an elective in your field that somehow has a global, an international, or an intercultural component. So those are the 5 courses.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting to hear, especially the research component. I never expected to hear that, like, you guys would have that component, like doing research in Spanish or in other languages, or well, specifically in Spanish, it's the Spanish minor, and then the internship as well. That sounds really amazing that's included in that.
Well, I feel that particularly in the health professions, the need for bilingualism goes beyond the patient and caregiver relationship, where it's clearly obvious, if you have Spanish speakers that can't speak English, there's a safety issue, right? They need to understand instructions. They need to be able to understand the explanations, but also obviously feel comfortable with the healthcare provider, right? Be able to ask questions, have all the fear and anxiety of navigating the healthcare system, have it reduced by having someone explain it to them in terms that make sense. But also, clearly, healthcare givers are also investigators, they're researchers. Just like language, you never stop learning language. You never stop learning about, the latest advancements in therapy, in kinesics, in all kinds of fields. So being able to research and have access to all the wealth of information in more than one language, it actually multiplies the number of studies that you can read. And also attending conferences in places that are Spanish speaking also multiplies your network and the level of your research. So I think that is also very important, because when you go to a research or to a bilingual job interview, they want to talk to you in terms clearly that are not secular. I mean, they're going to talk to you in specialized language. If you're not able to talk about your scientific concerns, if you're not able to put together your plans, your research plans, or the areas that really interest you in a coherent manner, in very specialized language in Spanish, they're not going to believe you're bilingual, right? They're going to say, yeah, you speak really good Spanish, but not in your field. Right. So you have to somehow be able to develop that register in Spanish as well.
And you mentioned how the Spanish minor, is 20 credits. In your opinion, is there any way that we could implement some of the courses into a graduate healthcare program, whether it's physical therapy, athletic training, or any other healthcare field, nursing as well? Any way that we could implement that, or would they be more as like supplemental lessons that they can take outside of the graduate program?
Well, it's interesting that you ask this, because in our department there has been a lot of talk precisely about this, and the problem right now is not the profile of this minor, is that somehow academic departments haven't quite been able to integrate language into their curriculums. If there was any support or interest in their parts, our idea would be to develop, instead, to exchange one of the general electives for Spanish for the medical, the health professions specifically. And clearly that can be done at different levels. If we do it within the minor, that would be clearly an elective that would transform the minor in something a lot more specific for the health sciences. We can also create a certificate, a graduate certificate, that would actually basically adjust the number of credits. It might reduce the number of credits. I think there's even less room to play as in the graduate programs normally. So you might be able to take away, the approved elective or the Spanish elective, but actually have a much more specific course, basically for Spanish for the health sciences. So both of those, these minor for at the undergraduate level with 20 credits, but perhaps substituting one of the electives for a particular course on Spanish for the health sciences, or else a 15 credit certificate at the graduate level could be perfectly, it's totally within our plans, and we have already begun speaking about it. The issue is, without the support of the health, the health sciences departments, There's no reason for us to put this together. So there has to be kind of a liaison. There has to be an agreement. There has to be a shift in the culture where language actually becomes intentionally part of the curriculum, not just something that you can do if you like. And it becomes recognized as a key component of your training. There are very few. There's a few bilingual programs, for nursing or other types of health sciences in the States. Clearly, we would be pioneering in this area. I mean, there's most of them are in Texas, in California, in Florida. Some of them in New Mexico, mostly in southern U.S. If we, even with a certificate, I believe you would have an advantage over most of the Midwest programs if we did that. But again, there has to be a concerted effort, essentially. There's got to be a shift where we are said, okay, this is something we are integrating, we're ready to implement it, what do you have? And then we can totally, obviously, we've already, in our department, we've already talked about the possibility of doing it. So it is possible. It would be, I believe, a fantastic idea and a great advantage to students. It's just a conversation that has to happen.
Okay. And then how would that kickstart? Like you said, you need support from the other healthcare programs as well. So is it just gathering interest and then just seeing if they start, like you said, planning with you guys, seeing what they would integrate as well? Or is there another component that you would need? Like, I know tuition would be a factor as well. So how would that?
Actually, it wouldn't need to be, because it would depend on how it was integrated in the curriculum. So I think that the key factors that have to be present is we have to demonstrate a market need, which it would be easy. There's a lot of studies out there that mark that. There would have to be student interest. So what you're doing right now, it's a perfect way into actually getting this kind of conversation started. If projects such as yours, or if you actually made survey of what percentage of the students right now studying would be interested in Spanish for medical sciences, certificate for 15 credits if offered, if we had that kind of survey, that kind of data. So market need, student interest, obviously. If those two were in place, I believe administration would be more than happy to make that curricular adjustment. So the market need is there. We have to see that the student interest is there too, because we are not going to create a whole program for one student, right? There has to be something that we know students desire, and there's going to be a support also on their part. After that, we're all on board. Our department is absolutely very excited about the possibility, and has already even talked strategically about what it would entail. And we're ready to make that commitment, because we realize how important it is, and how health sciences are such a large component and such a large part at the moment of our college, that honestly it's lacking. That connection with languages is lacking, and I'm very happy. I mean, your project couldn't be more timely. I think that thanks for allowing me to voice this, and I think I speak for my colleagues too when I say all these. As I said, this minor is something that began even before I arrived. I arrived the year of COVID.
Oh, okay.
and my colleagues had already gathered enough information to realize that this was vital and timely, and Spanish for the professions, given our profile and the increasing number of heritage speakers, but also advanced Spanish speakers who wanted to be able to prove that they could be bilingual professionals, was a very timely and practical degree. And I think, well, we're still trying to spread the voice
Yeah. What's interesting is that you brought up, doing a survey like within the students, and what I have planned with my professor is more than likely doing a quality improvement project. And she said, what like you could implement a survey, see if there's anybody interested within the or the campus community to see if this is something to look further into. And so now that you brought it up, I'm like everything is falling like into place to see if we can kickstart
That would be
this.
that I could help you put that survey together. It would be fantastic to actually test the pulse of the student interest and what their concerns are, and see if that's something they would be interested in, and at what level. Would it be something that they would want to start working on as undergrads, or is it more something that they would be interested in pursuing as a graduate?
Yeah.
Maybe they're not incompatible, maybe there's interest for both, but that would be a fantastic tool, and something that would definitely further this project and this conversation. I think that kind of stated number-based, basically, proof that students have the interest, and together with the employers surveys that state a definite need, I think it would be a hard thing to ignore.
Yeah, very true. Okay. Well, I believe we've hit all the questions I had listed. Is there anything you would like to ask me, or anything, else that you would like to mention?
Yeah, you talked to me about how the program, the project began, from personal experience. But I was wondering if you had a sense, in terms of this prospective survey of students in your program who like your project, who agree that it would be interesting, who found already in internships or in any kind of professional setting, conferences or any others, or when perhaps looking into research. If you've heard from them, how nice would it be to actually have Spanish as that kind of resource,
Yeah.
be able to function professionally in it? Do you have a sense of um, your classmates?
Yeah. So as of right now, we all talk to each other. We've talked about what we were going to do for our podcast video. And when I would bring it up, they're like, that's pretty cool. Like nobody is genuinely focusing on that aspect, on the language aspect within healthcare. So as of right now, I see interest.
Mhm.
But I feel like once I do start planning to do that survey in the future, and making it official, then I feel like that's when I'll have more information regarding that. But as of right now, they all say it's really interesting and they want to see how it moves on further.
Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. But that's a great. I think it's a great project, and so thanks so much for undertaking it. Right now, there is such a need for bilingual speakers in the health professions that there's actually a consortium that has been created in Chicago, the Chicago Bilingual Nurse Consortium, to bring health professionals from abroad and
Oh,
be
wow.
able to give them the certification to work in the US. That's how much needed they are. So if you were able to have those credentials,
Yeah.
you would be that much more competitive.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, I
So
didn't know about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's an interesting fact that I just found about recently, and
Okay.
that they're essentially importing your competition. So that's
Yeah.
how essential it is for you to be well versed, you know, culturally and linguistically. So I can thank you enough again for bringing this issue to the forefront, and
Yeah.
for having such an important investigation. So thank you so
Of course.
much, Jennifer.
No, yeah, thank you for you taking the time out of your day to talk to me and, help me understand more what more needs to be put into this to hopefully make it into a reality in the near future.
Thank you.
All right,
So,
thank you so much. Have a
um,
nice day. I really appreciate it.
thank you so much. Have a great rest of the semester and good luck. Hang on in there for the last week. Have
Hanging
a,
in there, yeah.
all right. Talk
Alrighty.
to you soon. Thank you,
Thank
Jennifer.
you.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
My name is Jennifer Quintas. I'm an athletic training student at North Central. I'm currently in my first year, and for my topic for this podcast, I decided to focus on cultural competency, specifically multilingual medical terminology and patient care. And I wanted to focus in even further on possibly implementing a Spanish medical terminology course in athletic training and seeing how it would benefit future athletic training students. So can you go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Karla Jasso. I'm an alum of North Central College. I currently work for Athletico. I'm in a high school setting.
Alrighty. And then what made you interested in to pursue athletic training?
Initially, I was interested just because being involved in sports and just being around sports all my life, like it was just always interesting. Then I started shadowing my high school athletic trainer, and that kind of really opened my eyes and saw it was just more than being at sports. It was about taking care of people and gaining their trust and making sure that they get back to doing what they love by doing something I love. So that was basically got me started, and I've obviously loved it ever since.
Yeah. And how many sites have you been at, like your overall professional career?
This is my first site that I've been at is in this high school setting, but I've also worked at a physical therapy clinic that was pretty small and it was in Naperville. I was more of a rehab aide at the time, so it was like between jobs, I guess, like transitioning into like my actual role as an athletic trainer. So that's where I worked before that.
Okay. Alrighty. And then how long have you been certified?
I've been certified for about 3 years now, which kind of seems crazy, but it's been about 3 years. Yeah.
3 years? Oh, wow. That does seem like a while. Alrighty. And then regarding where you work at currently, are you working at a high school, college?
I'm working at Glenbard North High School. They have a very diverse group of students,
Mhm.
um, ranging from different like economical statuses and race, gender, ethnicity, like just so many different. It's kind of a melting pot, which is where I'm used to coming from. So that was it felt very at home when I got there.
Okay. And then have you faced any challenges working at the high school, communicating with patients or even their parents?
Actually, I have. We do have a couple athletes actually, whose parents are deaf. So that was a challenging experience, communicating like an injury because we had to use the patient, the student athlete to communicate what kind of injury and like what the next course was and kind of what we were looking for. So like trying to explain it to them and like kind of water the language down enough that the student, I mean, you're talking about a high school age student, how they can communicate in sign language to their parent and then communicate back. So I have had to face that. That's honestly one of the only times that I've really had a struggle regarding that. But I do know my coworker struggles a lot again because we have so many different ethnicities and a lot of them do happen to be Hispanic. So um, that does kind of come into play with her experiences, but she has me there now, so it's helpful. But yeah, so I have had a that was like a frustrating time, definitely to communicate that.
And for your coworker, when she, or in the instances that you've seen, when she has to communicate with parents that are within the Latino community, how does she go about that? Like while you're there, and even in times when you're not available as well.
Yeah, so I think so before I started working at Glenbard North, I think in the school itself, there were maybe two people that could communicate in Spanish in the whole building, and they weren't always there after school. So before I got there, she had to communicate using like Google Translate or like try to use the student athlete or the patient just as a translator, which that doesn't always like translate very well because they are so young and they don't necessarily know what we're trying to communicate. And that can come off a little bit just different and like get lost in translation. But now that I'm there, it's helpful for the both of us actually. There's been times where she's had to make a phone call. She picks up the phone and they answer in Spanish, and she's like, and then it's like drop everything, and then I'm headed to talk to them, and then they feel more comfortable. They do. And they're like, okay, then they can kind of talk freely, and they don't have to like stutter on their words or think too much.
Mhm.
And I can kind of help the student also communicate better with their parent, because again, like a lot of the times the student doesn't really know kind of how to convey whatever I'm saying to their parent, but it makes it easier just being able to freely talk with them.
Okay, yeah. I've experienced that as well. Since I'm at the high school right now, it's predominantly, I would say, white. There is like a lot of different ethnicities and all that, but usually when like the Latino students come in, they usually gravitate towards DJ, which she talks Spanish all the time in the athletic training room, or towards me simply because they're like, oh, I I see myself in them. So that's just kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And then, in your opinion, would implementing a Spanish course for healthcare providers in general be a good idea, like for medical terminology?
I think it would be a really good idea just because knowing um, that Spanish is just such a high, like just very prevalent language in the United States as it is. I think it's super helpful. Again, I came from a school, like I went to high school, which was a melting pot. And there were a lot of Latino students, and there weren't a lot of Spanish speaking individuals in general, just like in the education system. And but I feel like in healthcare, it would be really, really beneficial to even just get some just like minor, even conversational elements kind of taught there, even just anatomical, like things that you can water down, maybe not necessarily like the scientific term for a bone or like a muscle, but just like the region of the body. Because I know most people would understand that if you kind of talk to them. Like, obviously, you can point and like signal with your hands, but if you're on the phone, it's a lot easier to kind of know the basics of like the human body. So I think it would be really helpful for everyone and make even like Spanish speakers really comfortable. Like you said, some of the Latino students do come, like at least I know they come to me too. They feel very comfortable. So it's a lot easier for them to just come to me and just explain their like concerns or their injuries and stuff like that. Because we do also have a good variety of and a good quantity of foreign exchange students, and a lot of them do happen to be from South America and whatnot. So yeah, I think it would be very, very helpful to have a language competency implemented in the program.
I think going back to how you mentioned that you had that encounter with the deaf athlete, that also makes me think of how even a sign language course could be implemented as well. And it keeps opening up to all the many different languages that we see within the US. And I can see how hard it is to try to just condense it into one course throughout somebody's education through athletic training. And it's a very broad how do you say it?
Yeah.
Very broad area to that. that's why I just chose to focus on Spanish, because that's what I've ran into, grown up around, and like personally, like I've had to be that interpreter for my parents as well. And it it makes a difference knowing that a healthcare provider speaks the same language as well, because it just changes the whole mood, the interaction. It just makes it better for the patient as well.
Yes, I agree. I fully agree.
And then, how do you feel adding the literature requirement to an AT program would enhance patient-centered care? Like, what would you see? How would they feel? How have you noticed the student athletes react to when you speak with them, or even their parents?
I think it builds like an incredible trust between the two. Like I said, I have student athletes that just come straight to me and explain to me what they're feeling or their injury and stuff. And sometimes it goes beyond that. It goes, hey, my knee hurts, and we talk about it. And then it's frustration because then they can't play and their coach doesn't understand because they can't explain it. So then it kind of translates into that. So they're able to kind of share their feelings with me. So that builds a sense of trust, I think, which is very important in our profession. And I also think just like in general compliance, we would be benefiting with that. They would become more compliant, and I have seen it also. Just a constant reminder to like come in. They feel comfortable around me enough to, say, oh yeah, this exercise hurts, that hurts. I just noticed this difference today. So I think in general, just trust is the biggest thing, and I think compliance would be huge, especially in, like I said, the profession we're in. Sometimes it gets hard to balance all of that and get people to truly like commit to the full experience of being in an athletic training room. But I do think that would help a ton.
And then, do you see any changes within the parents as well when you communicate with them in Spanish or any other language, or see that they have made changes as well, or are even more open? Because I know traditionally sometimes if Latino parents don't understand, they're a bit more hesitant on a few things.
Of course, yeah, I totally get that. And yeah, I have seen that kind of shift. When I do talk to a parent, at first they like are kind of apprehensive and they don't really like when I'm approaching them, and then I speak to them and they're like, oh, okay, like it just like opens a whole new different, like they're like, okay, she understands what I'm talking about. And not only that, but she understands like we're not like my background. Like there doesn't have to be like this like barrier there. And I think again, it goes along with trust, like and they automatically trust me. And especially when I'm caring for their child. But I have seen that change, and even like same parents that I've talked to, let's say in the fall season, then their student plays in the winter and the spring, and I see them around, and they wave, and it's nice to just like see a familiar face for them too. Like, oh, I do know that person. Like I know I can talk to her if I need a bathroom open or I need access to this field. Like I don't know where this field is or something like that. Or even like just in general, like school-wise, like do they have off this week or next week or whatever that may be. So I think just seeing a familiar face after knowing that you can communicate with someone is huge, especially in the United States. I just feel like it has a sense of comfort and like a sense of home somewhere that you don't feel comfortable in.
Those are all the questions I have for you. Do you have any questions for me regarding the podcast or my experiences, school, anything like that?
Yeah. How have you felt kind of jumping in this new role as a student in kind of predominantly white environment, and then comparing it to your past experiences?
When I first started, I definitely felt the shift. Like I'm originally from Rockford, Illinois, and they have a huge Latino community there. So being from that environment switching to this one, it was like it was like a culture shock for me.
Yeah.
So, I had to learn and find ways on how I felt connected to the community, and like thankfully athletic training gave me that. The athletic training program did. Especially with my preceptors, I was able to speak with them and they understood, and they were very supportive, and like if you need anything, like you can always talk to us. And just even talking with the athletes that do speak Spanish, I was just like, okay, now I'm feeling better. Now I feel more at home, like I belong. So that was a huge thing for me coming into this. But now that I'm at the high school, even seeing more athletes that speak Spanish and them seeing me also helps them, like, not, I wouldn't say like shoot for anything bigger, but they can see that it can be done
Yeah.
and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's great.
Yeah. So yeah.
It's rewarding to see that too. Like just, oh, someone that looks like me is in a role that I respect or that I'm in awe of or that I like what they do kind of thing. So that is really good.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm just excited to keep growing and then officially become an athletic trainer at the end of my second year. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that's an exciting time for sure. That is
Yeah.
exciting.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having this meeting with me. We'll keep in touch. So I really do appreciate it.
Yes, please reach out if you need anything at all. Like, use me as support. If you want to come shadow one day or something, let me know and just shoot me an email and
Okay.
I'll.
Alrighty. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Alrighty, thanks. Have a nice day.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.